Easy Peasy eBooks. Am I Taylor? Legal notice. henfhesentpressedmail.com. Introduction. One of the things about becoming your own publisher is that you have to start to think like a publisher, which can be a hard lesson to learn. Writers have always tended to blame cruel and short-sighted publishers for rejecting their precious manuscripts. Now an author can publish his or her own stuff, easily, but they've got no one to tell them in an unbiased sort of way if it's any good. They've also got no one to edit, sub-edit and proofread it and, worst of all, no one to sell it on their behalf. Selling it is what old-fashioned print publishers used to do, and, of all the various aspects of the publishing process, the thing you may find most difficult to do. An artistic nature and a flair for marketing are not necessarily present in the same person. In fact, in some ways, creating and selling are polar opposites. But now you have only yourself on your side. It's a growing problem, I think. E-publishing is slowly driving professional publishers out of business, which is fine in that everyone has more freedom. Yippee, it's the 60s all over again. Let it all hang out, because now anything by anyone can make it into print. This is truly wonderful if you've spent years sending manuscripts back and forth and having them returned to you coffee-stained and dog-eared with rejection slips attached. The trouble is that, increasingly, published e-books are becoming a sort of endless sea, a featureless ocean of published stuff, some of which is pretty damn bad, and your book will be just a drop in that ocean. In the old days when people bought a paperback, they could expect it to be good. After all, a publisher had accepted it, hadn't he? He had decided it was good enough to risk his own money on. Now it's all kind of random. As a reader, why should I buy your book if I've never heard of you and have no guarantee that it's going to be any good? So maybe I'll just stick to downloading people like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, people I know are going to be a good read. If you're into gloom and despondency, wicked wit and very long words, read this article by Will Self, http://www.theguardian.com/books/2014/May/02/Will Self Novel Dead Literary Fiction. P.S. Before I forget to insert a clickable link into an ebook, as I just did, highlight the link and go to Insert, tab, Hyperlink, OK. However, that's the way it's going. One of the ways I thought I might be able to help is this: when I decided to have a go at publishing online, I bought ebook after ebook telling me how. I spent more money on ebooks telling me how to publish ebooks than I have ever made from ebooks. They varied widely in quality and each one I read seemed to contradict the next. They made the whole process sound very complicated, which it isn't really, as I will show you. Partly this was because they didn't explain very well, and the reason for this was they already knew how to do it. Everyone knows how easy it is to put a flat-pack bookcase together once they actually have put it together, having spent several hours sweating and swearing over instructions translated from the Japanese and diagrams that are, as Dylan Thomas put it in A Child's Christmas in Wales, oh, easy for Leonardo. So they skipped stages that are vital to a beginner. They assumed knowledge, whereas I have assumed almost complete ignorance. I trained to be a teacher, although I didn't end up teaching. On my first teaching practice, whilst still a student teacher, I was required to teach maths to a class of 14-year-olds. Although my 14-year-olds weren't aware of this, I had been bottom or, in good years, second to bottom of every maths class I had ever had the misfortune to inhabit. My English was excellent, my maths was dire. I had the greatest possible fear of mathematics, mingled with the most stupendous boredom. I didn't know why I needed to know how to do equations. And when was I ever going to need to know that the square on the hypotenuse of a right-angled was equal to the sum of the squares on the two adjacent sides? And I was right, I never did need to know. I asked for help. One of the qualified teachers taught me in the staff room before each class, one step at a time, just the bit I was going to have to teach. So, fractions, or decimals, or long division. And I went out there and taught it, keeping my fingers crossed that there would be no child in my class quick-witted enough to ask me a question about anything other than what I had managed to memorize in the staff room 20 minutes ago. Promptly, after every maths lesson, I forgot everything I had just taught. I have no long-term memory at all for figures. Yet, to my own and everyone else's amazement, I was good at teaching maths, whereas my least successful lessons were in English, the subject I loved with a passion, and in which I had passed every exam with flying colors. What you have to do to teach successfully is to remember how your brain worked when you were a beginner, the things that stopped you in your tracks, puzzled and frustrated you. I have spent many months being stopped, puzzled and frustrated by the process of writing and publishing ebooks, but it is at least fresh in my mind, and that is going to help me to help you to move calmly and smoothly through the process, hassle-free, one step at a time, with every single thing explained, just in case. Chapter 1, Notes on Cover Design. Not that I'm an expert on cover design. I design my own covers A, because it's fun, and B, because I really and truly can't afford to do otherwise. You can get cover designers to do the whole thing for you and make a really professional job of it, but you will have to pay them, and quite a lot, if you want a really good cover. I am writing this book for people who, like me, 8 months ago, have never published an ebook and don't know where to start. You may be really lucky and get a bestseller first time round, in which case, in retrospect, you could have afforded to have a top-notch professional cover done, but realistically it's more likely that, however good it is, your book will only sell a handful of copies, lots of free downloads, I'll explain about that later, but hardly any actual sold copies bringing royalties to you after all your hard work. Or you may just need to practice by publishing 1 or 2 short works under a pseudonym, maybe some of those short stories gathering dust in a cardboard box in the wardrobe, or that old novel you rediscovered on the computer. You don't need to use that particular pen name again. For first-time or experimental ebooks, or for any ebook that you suspect isn't going to make you any money, I think it's better to design your own. If you do find you've got a bestseller on your hands, you can rush off and instruct a professional designer to make an all-singing, all-dancing, expensive front cover for you, and substitute it for your old one. Amazon will let you change your covers as often as you like. The other thing about designing your own cover is it's an interesting experience. Designing is another form of creativity, and you're already a creative person or you wouldn't be writing. It's exciting, and a great learning experience, technically. It also gives you a healthy respect for the skills and training real designers. One thing I have learned, partly by trial and error and partly from trawling all the websites I could find on the subject, is to keep in mind your audience. As authors, particularly as fiction authors, which I also am, we tend to think of the book we have just written in terms of symbols and themes. For instance, when I was writing my one and only, so far, literary novel, Skating on Thin Ice, I had in mind a number of mental pictures around which I had written the book. There was an orange street lamp, a frozen pond, a drowning woman, and Hans Christian Andersen. Yes, I know, kinda weird. It started off as a poem, you see. Anyway, I was so proud of the book I went to a professional cover designer, the first and only time I have done this, and duly provided him with all my symbols and themes, and he duly designed me an excellent cover with all, or at least quite a few, of my symbols and themes represented, but overall it was just confusing. And the book didn't sell any better than any of my others, with their die covers. You have to remember that the potential buyer, and that's who you're aiming your cover at, hasn't yet read your book and didn't write it. All your symbols and themes, which may have deep emotional significance for you, mean nothing to them. It's like trying to decide what to wear. Forgive me for using a lady example, gentlemen, but you will see what I mean. You could go out in an orange mini skirt, fishnet tights, a purple hat, a striped blouse, 7-inch platforms with patent leather bows, a polka-dot scarf and green eyeshadow, but would you? Less is more. If you go too far you will be parading the streets looking like what my granny would have described as a dog's breakfast or done up like a dog's dinner. If you are not sure what looks good on a cover, take some time to study other people's covers. Pick out the ones you really like. What you are aiming at is the sort of cover you can't look away from. The sort of cover that draws your eyes back up the list to have another look. I am assuming if you are writing for Kindle you have probably shopped on Amazon for eBooks yourself. How do you do it? You are faced with an apparently infinite list of books, small cover pictures but even smaller print. You are not reading, really, you are scanning. You are looking at the pictures. If one catches your eye you might click on it and find out a bit more. You might do the look inside thing, or read the description. If you are still interested you might diddle down and see if any readers' reviews have been posted. You might check the price. Does the book sound as if it will be worth $2.99, £1.50 or whatever? If you are still interested you might buy it. At least to begin with, you are scanning rather than reading. The picture needs to catch a potential buyer/reader's attention first. It needs to be clear, colorful, interesting, intriguing, pretty, whatever. It needs to be the sort of cover that would make you buy a book you know nothing about from someone you have never heard of. It's worth making it colorful even though on some Amazon screens your cover will be displayed in black and white and thumbnail size. There is an increasing number of ways in which people are noticing and selecting ebooks. Some covers are quite big, some are quite small, some are in color, some are in black and white. The reading interface is being improved upon all the time and likely to be improved upon further still in the future. You need to aim to make a cover that works well however it's eventually displayed. My advice is, don't try particularly hard to match the cover of your book to its contents. Go for a great picture first, then think about whether it might, conceivably, fit the book. I sometimes browse through all those pages of free-to-download photos, more about those later, just to find the sort of photos that make me look twice, strike me as beautiful or unusual, make me stop and study them. It's worth building up a little library of such photos for future use. You might even get an idea for a book from a photo you like. And when you start actually building your cover, after a while, putting together an ebook does get to feel more like a process of building than one of writing, making or designing. Think not only about the picture but about the typeface you choose, the size of the print, its positioning on the page so that it catches the eye but does not obscure the most interesting little bit of the picture, the center of the rose, the head of the dragon and so forth. You don't want your potential buyer to be forced to squint and get cross in an attempt to see behind your title, name or whatever to work out the picture. You want the print and the picture to enhance rather than hinder each other. It's a good idea, therefore, when choosing photos, to look for ones with a few areas of spare space for your words. Try to imagine the picture with your title, subtitle and name included. A blank space in the top right-hand corner would be especially handy for your title as apparently that's where people tend to look first. However, if it's really good picture without much blank space, there are ways round it, for instance by fading out or dimming down the picture so that the title etc. will stand out over the top of it. More of this later. Chapter 2, Finding a free photo for your book cover. If it was me, well, it is me, I would go straight to http://www.morguefile.com/archive. There are many websites that will allow you to download photos once you have paid for them, either directly or by purchasing credit in advance and then spending part or all of the credit you have purchased on however many photos you have saved to your Lightbox. They often ask for your email address and want you to register and set up a password, which you will instantly forget. Then you will get emails from them forever, after which you will have to waste time deleting. There is nothing wrong with this except that you have to pay for them. Do you really want to pay when you don't have to? Especially when you haven't as yet made any money out of your ebook and may never. Wait till you're rich. This may be a long time. I found finding a source of free cover photos one of the most difficult parts of my knit your own ebook experience. That and producing a clickable table of contents, doc. I am going to help you with clickable docs later in the book, don't worry. Depending on how much time and money you have to spare, you can spend as long as you like explaining all the different sources. You will come across a selection of them by Googling stock photos. But if you just want to get on with making your cover and getting your ebook into print, and don't want to have to spend any money at all doing so, I suggest you go straight to Morguefile, which is a beautiful website, the content there of being the equivalent of 3 Christmases rolled into one. If you are wondering why something so wondrous should be associated with morgues, here is their own explanation. A Morguefile is a place to keep post-production materials for use of reference, an inactive job file. This Morguefile contains free high-resolution digital stock photography for either corporate or public use. The term Morguefile is popular in the newspaper business to describe the file that holds past issues flats. Although the term has been used by illustrators, comic book artists, designers and teachers as well. The purpose of this site is to provide free image reference material for use in all creative pursuits. This is the World Wide Web's Morguefile. In my opinion, if you can't find enough gorgeous photos on Morguefile to last out a lifetime of ebook cover making, you are one fussy bunny. All you do is click on the link above, or type Morguefile into Google and you've arrived. Without needing to be asked, it displays for you a random selection of images. I often find it helpful to start random, rather than searching, a search box provided, for what seems like a relevant image to my title. This is because it keeps my mind open. For example, if you are writing a book about money, the natural tendency would be to type in coins or currency. Then you get a lot of rather samey pictures of stacked up coins, randomly strewn dollar bills, open wallets, etc. It doesn't allow you to think sideways, you get no alternative vistas. Referring back to my notes on cover design, you are not aiming, with your chosen photo, to accurately and pedestrianly, I know that's not a word, represent the theme or content of your book. You are aiming to sell your book, which means you are looking for a cover photo which will captivate and interest people. Make them really want to click on it to find out more. You are never going to be able to tell the whole story of your book via its cover, and if you succeeded in doing so, why then would anybody need to buy your book? People buy books because they want to find out what's inside. If you just keep going through the random stuff, sooner or later something will leap out at you as perfect. If it doesn't, then you can start typing in specific search terms. Once you've found your perfect photo, or a selection of photos you might use, just click on it to view image. The picture appears in a bigger screen. If you still like what you see, check that it says Morguefile free photo. The site does also supply paid for images if you want them. You shouldn't be seeing one of these if you ask to see free photos, but just check. A message should come up like this: Morguefile free photo. You are allowed to copy, distribute, transmit the work and to adapt the work. Attribution is not required. You are prohibited from using this work in a standalone manner. What you do then is click on Download Image. A little strip arrives at the foot of your screen asking you if you want to open or save the file. Click Save, then Save As. At this point, on my computer, Pictures Library opens up in a new window. So I just press Save again and there the photo is, safely stored and available to insert when I'm making my cover. I'm not sure whether Pictures Library opens up in the same way on all computers, yours might be set up differently. If it doesn't, Save the photo to wherever you normally save photos, or to your desktop. Then it says thank you for downloading and you just click OK. Note the attribution is not required in Morgue File's message. On some sites the author of the photo will ask that you attribute his or her name to the photo in your finished work. Always read any conditions attached to using the photo. If the conditions are overcomplicated or you can't work out what on earth they are going on about, ditch the photo and look for another. Don't just take a risk and use it. I have never yet come across this request on Morgue File, but I do always include in the attributions section of my front matter page. More about front matter later, something like this: cover photo, cat. Morgue File, www.morguefile.com. I just think it's polite to the website and the unknown photographer, and may also be of assistance to other potential ebook writers searching for sources of cover photos. Morgue File usually only supplies the photographer's username, which doesn't tell you much about them, but if I were to use a photo, say from some other site, and a proper name had been given, even though it was a free-to-download photo, I would always quote the photographer's name and the title they originally gave their photograph. Because after all, you are making use of someone else's talent. Chapter 3, Making Your Cover. Cover Creator Beta. By all means explore the possibilities of Amazon's Cover Creator Beta. Cover Creator Beta is Amazon's own cover creating wizard, becoming available to you during the publication process, but it's not, as yet, terribly good. I gather beta attached to a piece of software indicated that it is still under development, so by all means keep an eye on it. They may improve it substantially one of these days. I have used it several times but always quickly changed my covers back to my own homemade versions. It's an excellent idea, and certainly quick and user-friendly, but there are two main drawbacks. Pictures. Last time I looked, the selection of pictures was relatively small, and what was there looked like randomly tossed in holiday snaps. It felt like riffling through the clothes hangers in a charity shop. You really had to search hard to find something likable, let alone buyable or usable. If a photo doesn't attract you, how is it going to attract anyone else? There were also kind of plain, non-picture designs, but they didn't look like proper books to me, more like a somewhat upmarket relative of Amazon's functional but depressing placeholder covers. The placeholder is the design that gets inserted when no cover has been supplied at all. You see placeholders on fusty old items like Gulliver's Travels and works of John Bunyan, complete, or the works of Aristotle, the famous philosopher, containing his complete masterpiece and family physician, his experienced. I can't be bothered with the rest, that are available free because they're out of copyright. Designs. The other problem is that the range of designs you can make is limited and always seems to include these strip things running at funny angles. The equivalent of text boxes, which we are going to use later. It wouldn't matter if there were lots of books with this rather stereotyped design, but absolutely the only ones you see with it are Cover Creator Beta. They are instantly recognizable and sort of naff. Naff is a British slang expression, probably out of date by now. Here, I've looked it up for you in Collins Thesaurus. Naff. British slang equals bad, poor, inferior, worthless, pants, slang, duff, British, informal, shabby, second-rate, shoddy, low-grade, low-quality, trashy, substandard, for the birds, informal, crappy, slang, valueless, rubbishy, poxy, slang, piss-poor, slang, chicken shit, us, slang, strictly for the birds, informal, twopenny halfpenny, bodger or bodgy, Australian, slang. Cover Creator sounds like an excellent idea, and it's certainly a worthy attempt by Amazon to help new authors overcome one of the most daunting aspects of ebook publication, but at the moment it just gives too much away. It announces to people that you are a self-publisher rather than a huge publishing house, and that either you are not up to designing your own covers or you can't afford to employ a professional cover designer. Knitting your own cover. I'm going to go through each stage as if it were a recipe or a knitting pattern. I was mightily tempted to call this book Knit Your Own eBook, but I thought it might cause men to assume, wrongly, that it was only a book for daft old women, and women to be irritated by the implication that only daft old women would find themselves struggling with unfamiliar technology and an unfamiliar process. Being a daft old woman myself, I couldn't have that. Sad, all the same. I had such a good cover in mind. It's going to be What Do I Do Now? Followed by What Do I Do Next? All the way through. Easy. Peasy. File, tab. New. Create. Page layout, tab. Size. Letter. Insert. Picture, Windows Live Photo Gallery opens up. Browse through the gallery till you find the picture you chose your cover. Click on the picture and it will appear in your cover document. It will be in a box with squares and dots round the edges. Don't be scared. It just means the box is alive and you can do things to it. If you want it to be non-alive, you just click outside the box. If you want to re-alive it, you just click inside the box. View. One page, in the zoom section. The page now appears smaller, which makes it easier to work on. If it's already small, leave it as it is. Your picture in a box should still be alive. If it isn't, click on it. At the top you will see a lit up tab called Picture Tools. Mine's lit up pink, but yours might be a different color. Under that is Format. Click on Format. Position. In the section called With Text Trapping you will see an array of little diagrams. The diagram is meant to be two mountains with the sun rising behind them. I know, you thought it was an envelope and so did I. When you click on the middle diagram, the one that shows the mountains/envelope right in the center of the page, you will find that your picture has jumped to the middle of your page. I have just found, by trial and error, that starting with the picture in the middle makes it easier to manipulate. Your picture should still be alive. If it isn't, click on it. Where have all the menus gone? The word ribbon interface has this snooty little habit of hiding menus from you until it thinks you are ready to see them. You will find that it offers you different sets of options depending on what you have just clicked on. This can make you feel quite seasick for quite a long time. It's like you're in an Alice in Wonderland world where Cheshire cats grin at you from trees, and then don't, and rabbits vanish down rabbit holes. Wrap text. Behind text. Now the photo is, even though you can't actually tell yet, putting itself behind your title, subtitle, author name, etc. Next you want to make the picture fill the whole page. You don't have to do this. You could leave the picture wherever it happens to land, plonking your text items above and below it. You could then give the white bits a colored background so that the photo wasn't too obviously plonked. I have done this myself in the past, not knowing any better, but I don't anymore. Leaving it plonked just tells anyone who can do advanced word processing that you haven't yet mastered text trapping, and why give them a chance to feel smugly superior when by the time you have read this chapter you will have mastered text trapping, or at least as much of it as you are going to need from now. You can explore its many other possibilities at your leisure. The other thing is that pictures arrive in different sizes. Don't ask me why, but some arrive tiny, some are a nice convenient size and some are huge, taking up most of the page. If you are determined to go the amateur plonking route but your picture comes in huge, you've then got to go to all the trouble of dragging at the box, explained below, it to the huge it. This might work, but it might result in a strangely squashed and out of proportion looking picture. So, using your mouse you are going to slowly pull your picture until it covers the whole of your white page. This seems to work best if you grab the bottom square first. If things do go pear-shaped, this process can be a trifle hit and miss and requires finer than usual mouse control. If anything unexpected happens, For instance, the picture suddenly jumps way beyond the boundaries of your white page. Don't panic. Go up to the top left and click on the anti-clockwise blue arrow. If you're not sure which of the two blue arrows it is, just hover over them to reveal their labels. The one you want is undo behind text. You can click the blue arrow once, or more than once, depending on how many steps back you need to take to unpear shape your picture. Hover over the bottom square with your mouse, then, holding down the left button on your mouse, gently drag the picture towards the bottom of your white page. Don't panic if the picture goes all stretchy. When it reaches the bottom of the page, let go. The picture will probably pop back up towards the middle like chewing gum, though not all the way back to where it started. Grab the bottom square again and drag again, and again, if necessary. When you are getting near the bottom edge, do little drags till the top and bottom squares just about disappear. Overdoing it, especially at this point, can result in the pear-shaped situation. Just do the blue arrow thing and have another go. Now grab the left square with your mouse and drag again, till the picture fills the whole page. File. Save. Give it a title. The reason you are saving at this stage is that you will be so peeved if you lose your work and have to go through all that dragging stuff again. Naming. I named my cover for this book Easy Peasy eBooks, Cat Cover. I didn't just call it cover because I may in the future decide to change the cover. Amazon allows you to do this as often as you like. The book may not be selling with its original cover, you may have got fed up with it, or your technique may have improved and you realize you can do a better job. I often design 2 or 3 covers and then select the one I like best when I have finished the book. Or I may change the cover, only to decide I don't like the new cover and want to revert to the original. The thing is, I may well be doing this months or years down the line, having written many other ebooks and designed many other covers, by which time I may not, being a daft old woman, remember what all my previous covers looked like. If I just called it cover, or even cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, I would have to open each one to refresh my memory. Providing myself with an image, cat cover, will tell me at a glance. Saving. I save my cover S in the same folder as my main text document and any other documents associated with this particular book. So, this book and its cover, and various other bits and pieces, will all saved in a folder called Easy Peasy eBooks. This just makes things easy to find in future. You can make your photo look different. Before we leave photos and start on your title, subtitle and author name, you should know that there is quite a lot you can do to change the look of the photo itself. At this point your little squares and circles should have disappeared. They should still be there but beyond the edges of your white page. If you can't see Picture Tools and Format lit up at the top, click on your picture to make it alive again. So, Picture Tools. Format. Color. One thing you can do is change the color or color balance of your photo. The best way is just to click on these different color variations and see what you think. There are many other options available under Picture Tools. I'm going to leave you to experiment with these on your own, just try them out as you did color. Using them you can, if you really want to, change your original cover photo out of all recognition. One word or warning, though. Remember that Dolly Parton song, Jolene, Jolene etc. Please don't take him just because you can. Please don't fall into the trap of tiddling about with special effects ad infinitum just because you can. Moderation in all things. Only use them if they really look good and right for your book. Best to refer back to the chapter 1 for notes about design. Now for your title, subtitle and author name. You are going to put each of these inside a box, exactly the same sort of box as the picture arrived in. Boxes don't need to remain visible in the finished product, unless you choose to leave them visible. To my mind, having tried them out once or twice, visible boxes look a bit Blue Peter-ish, but it's up to you. If invisible they will still be there, working their little bits of magic, just underneath. Blue Peter, British children's TV show first aired in 1958, the longest-running TV show in the world, apparently. At least in the early years its presenters were both famed and derided for demonstrating how to make daft, useless but ingenious items out of toilet roll middles, washing up bottles and sticky-backed plastic. Using boxes makes your cover text easy to manipulate and experiment with. Inside each box you can change oodles of stuff, the background color, the color of the letters, the size of the font, and all sorts of visual effects, without doing anything scary or unexpected to the stuff outside. Think of your cover as the sea and your boxes as rectangular islands afloat upon it. So, insert, tab. Text box. At the bottom of text box, click on Draw Text Box. Your cursor will change to something that looks like this plus. Find a likely looking space on your picture to plonk your text box. Note, when choosing pictures in the first place, bear in mind likely spaces. If your picture is too busy, your only option will be to plonk over some interesting bit of busyness which will annoy prospective downloaders. Space is good. If your picture happens to fill the middle of the page, you can plonk to one side, or plonk several small boxes, or arrange your text so it reads vertically. For an example of this, take a look at the cover of one of my books of short stories using this link, http://www.amazon.co.uk/gp/product/boo version = 1 and entries = 0. Yes, it's still me. I publish non-fiction under the name of Amisha Taylor, but fiction under Merlin James and Aisling O'Connor. What's my real name? Well, think of one of the most boring English women's names and the second or third most common English surname, and you'll probably have got it. Which is why I don't use it. And anyway, why pass up the chance to be magical and mysterious, or Irish? Since you have the other two names, you could also take a look at those on Amazon to give you some idea of what's possible, cover-wise, just using Word 2010. You don't have to actually buy any of them, unless of course you really want to. So, your cursor has changed to something that looks like this plus and you have found a plonking place on your picture. Hold down your left mouse button and pull. You will find you are making a rectangle. It's called dragging. You can drag the rectangle sideways or upwards or indeed in any direction. Let go of your mouse. What's left is a faint outline of the box you've just drawn. The box is provided with little handles on the sides, just as the photo underneath it was. At any time, you can grab one of these handles again with your mouse and alter the shape/size of the box. The green handle at the top is for rotating the whole thing. Be a bit careful with this one, you can end up with a tipsy-looking box which isn't really any improvement on an upright one. People are only going to spend a microsecond or two scanning your cover. Let them concentrate on being attracted to the picture or the idea of your book, rather than craning sideways to read the text. Not that I haven't disregarded this rule myself, sometimes. Rules are made to be broken. You can also edit the shape of your box in more dramatic ways. Look for Edit Shape towards the left-hand side of the Drawing Tools format ribbon, which has now magically appeared. Home. Choose a font and text size that suits the size of the box and your subject matter, that is, you need the letters to fill the box rather than being teensy tiny unreadable things in one corner, and you need a font that puts people in mind of your subject. So, you wouldn't use anything too flutty and frilly for a computer book, but you might for, say, a book entitled 1001 Ways to Make Lavender Bags, Perish the Thought, or Calligraphy for Beginners. Mine is Easy Peasy eBooks. I chose lowercase and a font that reminded me of learning to read, Crescenic, font size, 56. If you were doing a book about writing old-fashioned detective novels, you might choose a font reminiscent of old-fashioned typewriter, for example Bookman Old Style. You may have to go online download some of the more exotic fonts yourself. There's one called Chiller which might suit a gory, zombie novel. I even found Klingon, which turns everything into bat'leth type symbols. Presumably this would only be of use to eBook publishing Klingons or Star Trek fans, and one called Anonymous Clippings that makes your typed script look as if it was cut out of magazines and newspapers by some poison pen letter writer. You can change your font and font size at any time. Just get it approximately right for now. You can have your nom de plume in the same box as your title, or you can have title, subtitle and author name in multiple boxes scattered over your cover. Highlight the text in your box, hold down left mouse and drag it over the text, then let go. Home. Center, in paragraph section. This places your text in the center of the box horizontally. Format. Align text. Middle. This places your text in the center of the box vertically. Hooray! Still under format. Wrap text. Behind text. This places the text in your box in front of your picture. Shape outline. No outline. Shape fill. No fill. The above will make the box invisible in the finished product, you'll just see a picture with text over it. You don't have to do it my way, it's just one way. By all means experiment with outlines and fills at this point. You may decide to change the color of your text. For example, I started off with black lettering but bits of it didn't show up when they covered the black bits of the Kindle in the picture. I experimented with different colored fonts, which made it more visible. White can be good, even. Eventually, like Amy Winehouse, I went back to black, and solved the problem by repositioning and reshaping my box. There will always be more than one solution to a word processing / cover design dilemma. Patience. Ingenuity. It's fun. So, to change text color, home. Under font, look for a capital A underlined in color. Often, if previously untampered with, it will be underlined in red. Click on that A. Choose a color. Remember you can also bold or italic your title, for greater emphasis. They're on home too. If you are still not happy with the position of your hand-drawn box, click on the box. The drawing tools, format tabs will appear. Click on those. Position. Hover over the different positions with your mouse and it will show you what your box would look like: top left, bottom right, center, etc. Select one that appeals to you. If the text in your box looks uncomfortably spread out, try home. Line spacing, in paragraph 1.0 or 1.5. If it's still too gappy, click remove space after paragraph as well. If you make a series of mistakes and the whole thing begins to look like a dog's breakfast, and you will, try clicking on the blue undo arrow, top left, as many times as it takes to get you back to pre-dog's breakfast. If you get a bit lost in all the different ribbons, don't panic. The Windows ribbon will keep metamorphosing to what it thinks you ought to want at any one point. The fact that it's nearly always right doesn't make it any less disconcerting and queasy-making. If you get lost in space outside your box, click Picture Tools, Format. If you get lost in space inside your box, click Drawing Tools, Format. If you can't see your box, click on top of the text the box now contains and that ghostly outline will reappear, plus all the necessary handles for dragging the box bigger or smaller. That's it. File. Save. Remember you can alter your design as many times as you like before actually uploading it to Kindle Direct Publishing. What looks like the bee's knees on Thursday evening may well have become the bee's bottom by Friday morning. Even after publication you are at liberty to make another cover design and upload it. Sometimes a better, or even just different, cover can make a difference to sales. What I've told you, though it probably seems like far too much by this time, is only the tip of the iceberg. All you need to do is play, to learn the rest. Designing the cover, once you're past the learning stage, is actually the fun bit. Writing your book, Now that's much more like hard work. Chapter 4, Getting Started on Your eBook Main Document. Open a new Word document and save it into a new folder. For example, the Word document for this book is called Easy Peasy eBooks, main, and the folder it is saved in is called Easy Peasy eBooks. Everything to do with this particular book will be saved in the same folder, making it easy peasy to locate in the future, when you have written 15 or 20 of the things. Insert several page breaks, Ctrl return, to provide pages for A. The title page, B. The front matter page, C. The table of contents page. On the fourth blank page you will actually start typing, or inserting, if you are going to build your book out of a collection of separate Word documents, your, fingers crossed, bestseller. Note, you do not have to build your book in any particular order. You can leave the title, front matter and doc pages till last if you want to. It doesn't matter as long as you've got everything in the right place by the time you publish. See separate chapters on how to set about A, B, and C. Of course, even in the good/bad old days you could have penned your paperback novel in whatever sequence you preferred. No doubt many traditional, that is non-electronic, writers did just that. All you would have needed was a big lever arch file, dividers for the chapters and post-it notes to remind you where there were sections still to insert. Oddly, it never occurred to me in my youth, when working with, yes, unfortunately I am that old, wide, faint file paper and to be pencils, had to be perfectly sharp, that there was no such thing as the writing police, liable to drop in on you any minute to make sure you had started with chapter 1 and ended with the end written in large capitals followed by several exclamation marks. On the contrary, if you haven't already discovered, you soon will, that writing is the loneliest possible task. Nobody drops in on you. There you are within the same four walls, writing, 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 writing. Occasionally muttering to yourself, perhaps. And even if anybody did drop in and you could somehow manage to concentrate to write in their presence, what would they see? Some boring person, writing, writing, writing. Or, intermittently, staring out of the window. In any case, it's impossible to write anything of any quality in the presence of anything larger than a cat. Another thing you can do is assemble your book in a series of separately saved Word documents and then just slot them in. It depends on the kind of book. Fiction is a bit different, it depends how heavily you have plotted it in advance. If, like me, you tend to like to start writing and find out what happens, you may find it easier to stick to the traditional method. With an e-book it's just somehow easier to boilerplate it and after a while more natural to do it that way. For a definition of boilerplating see Wikipedia. Basically it just means pasting chunks of text into your main document from other places, so your main document is functioning initially as a scrapbook, but not in the sense of being random and incoherent. Formatting. All the how-tos I read on making ebooks, before I discarded them and decided to give it a go and find out by trial and error, seemed to make a huge thing of formatting, as if it was some dark art you had to master. If you didn't obey great lists of rules about formatting, the how-tos implied, you would end up with an ebook that was all over the place, quite ridiculous looking, because in the process of converting your poor little Word document into whatever Kindle Direct Publishing uses, strange and distressing things would happen. You would end up with a book with exotic characters instead of full stops, or huge white spaces where you hadn't expected them or dot. Whatever. All you need to do is keep it simple. I'm going to leave off the last S, because you're not stupid. Whatever font you use, the reader is probably going to change it to something else. Pick something well-known and easy on the eye, for you, when you are typing, such as Times New Roman. I'm typing this in Book Antiqua, because I like the look of it. Similarly, whatever font size you use, the reader can change it. just go for 11 or 12. If your eyesight's a bit iffy, you can always type the whole thing in a much larger font size, downsizing it before you publish. You can highlight whole blocks of text to do this, but don't highlight the whole document to save time, or you are likely to wipe out all your headings and have to re-heading them. I'm assuming you know that fonts and font sizes can be found on the Home tab. Line spacing. Set the line spacing at whatever you find easiest to see when typing. But for actually publishing the book, it just needs to be single-spaced, or sometimes I use 1.15 spacing. Spacing can be found on the Home tab. Whatever you set it at, the reader can and probably will change it. There used to be all sorts of rules in books about indenting. I think the first paragraph in a chapter, or was it in the book as a whole, was supposed to left unindented, that is flush with the left margin, whilst all subsequent paragraphs were supposed to be indented. If you look at a traditional book, you will be able to check this for yourself, though each publisher has his own house style. The how-tos went to great lengths to tell me how to indent. Mustn't use the tab key. Must go to Page Layout, tab. Paragraph. Click on the so tiny as to be almost invisible diagonal arrow at the bottom right of paragraph. Indentation. Special. First line. By 0.8 centimeters or whatever takes your fancy. OK. You set this up at the beginning of the document and then, in theory, it should stay like that as you proceed through the document. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. The trouble is those lovely looking chapter headings, which come complete with their own set of formatting instructions. Headings really love to confuse things and wipe out any formatting you thought you had already set up. After a heading you may suddenly find your line spacing has jumped to double and your carefully set up indents have vanished. Then you have to waste time resetting them. If I were you, I wouldn't bother with indents. Who needs them? Readers want to be able to read the book, not admire your advanced word processing skills. Most of them wouldn't know what an indent was if it snuck up behind them and said boo. All you need is a space, that is a return, between paragraphs, and to keep paragraphs reasonably short. Keep the paragraphs short because a paragraph on your computer, which has a big screen, can look quite short, but an e-book reader is reading it on an e-reader, and you have no way of knowing what font size or spacing he has chosen to use. That short paragraph of yours may end up splurging over several tedious, unbroken pages on an e-reader. The thing with reading unbroken text is it tends to wear you out. We're kind of programmed to keep reading until we reach a bit of a gap, mainly, I think, because that way you are less likely to lose your place. But if there is no gap you start to get a bit tired, and bored, and irritable. You may not know why, but you will experience a general sigh, I'm fed up with this e-book feeling. You don't want people getting fed up with your book and giving up on it. If they give up on one of your books, simply because you haven't supplied enough breathing and resting spaces, they will begin to dislike you. And when they come across your name again, whatever it is attached to, they won't buy. The title page. All you need here is, nicely spread out, and maybe in slightly larger letters, your title, any subtitle and your name, real name or pen name, whatever you're going to use. You can, if you want, insert a small picture into this page, using exactly the same picture inserting routing as you did for your cover, that is, insert picture. Select the picture you want to use. OK. You might need to resize it a bit by dragging the edges, but that shouldn't be beyond someone who's just designed their own ebook cover. This is mine from Living on Thin Air, just to give you some idea. Living on Thin Air. How to be poor and more or less cheerful. Amisha Taylor. The front matter page. This sounds very technical, but it isn't really. More boring. But it doesn't take long. First of all you need a disclaimer. Then you need to put your acknowledgements. Then you need to put your copyright info. This is mine from a living on thin air, legal notice. Although the author and publisher have made every effort to ensure that the information in this ebook was correct at the time of publication, they do not assume and hereby disclaim any liability to any party for any loss, damage, or disruption caused by errors or omissions, whether such errors or omissions result from negligence, accident, or any other cause. Acknowledgements. Judge's Gavel and Dragonfly Illustrations, Microsoft Clip Art. Front cover Dragonfly/Hyacinths, Morgfile www.morgufile.com. Copyright Hen Pheasant Press 2014. All rights reserved. henpheasantpress@mail.com. Disclaimers. As far as the disclaimer is concerned, this is to help protect you from prosecution. You can find all sorts of templates for legal disclaimers on the internet, and you really just need to choose one that suits the sort of book you have written. For a book like this one, not much can happen to anyone who follows my advice, even if I have made a mistake somewhere, so I just used a general non-fiction disclaimer. For Living on Thin Air it was the same, mostly based on personal experience. But if you are writing a book about, say, health, even if it is in layman's terms, anything people might conceivably claim to have come to grief after reading, go for a more pointed disclaimer. For example, I wrote a book about auditory and other hallucinations. I was very careful in writing it to be as accurate as I knew how, and to encourage people to seek medical advice if in any doubt, but after some thought I went for this disclaimer. The author and the publisher have attempted to be accurate in the creation of this ebook. The content is as accurate as possible as of publication date. Neither the publisher nor the author accepts any responsibility for errors or omissions. The views expressed are those of the author alone. The reader is responsible for his or her actions. If you think you may be suffering from any medical condition, you should seek immediate medical attention. You should not delay seeking medical advice, disregard medical advice, or discontinue medical treatment because of information in the ebook. If it is a fiction book, you just need to remind people that your characters are imaginary, that even if, by some awful coincidence, one of your characters reminds someone on the other side of the world of themselves, it isn't them. And make sure it isn't them. People you have met, family members etc., may well inspire you, may well contribute towards a composite character, but do not use someone, whether it's someone you know, or somebody famous, in his or her entirety. Do not give your character a name that other people might interpret as belonging to that person. Do not give them the same physical appearance, the same house, the same profession, the same anything. Do not say or imply anything unpleasant about a character who might even accidentally be perceived to be based upon a real person. The whole point of writing is that, being possessed of unusual imaginative capacity and talent, you are creating, you are inventing stuff. You don't need to import characters undigested, warts and all, from real life. So, for my novel Skating on Thin Ice I used this disclaimer. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in a fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. The clickable table of contents page. Clickable talks terrify new authors. They look so horribly nerdy. How do they work? How are you ever going to be able to create something so wonderful? Surely only Bill Gates himself could make one. I was the same. I spent days watching YouTube videos of people explaining in all sorts of horrendously unfathomable ways how to make the clickable doc. I scoured websites and chat rooms, not that I am sure even now what a chat room is. Eventually, piecing all these random and contradictory bits of information together, and after a day of trial and error, of sweating and swearing and every now and again crying in frustration, I succeeded in working it out for myself. You do not need to do this. Just follow my recipe. Once you have done it a few times, you can explore a bit further and add refinements. It's not all that difficult once you know how. How many times has that occurred to you, after wrestling with the instructions for assembling a plastic pet carrier, or trying to build a bookcase out of hundreds of unrelated pieces of MDF? Instructions are, by their very nature, written by people who already know how to assemble the thing they are instructing people to assemble. English is often not their first language. Also, they tend to be people who are good at making things. I have written my instructions for people who don't much like making things, who would much prefer to be doing what they are much better at, writing, and are more or less terrified of instructions. These instructions are being written by someone who this morning attempted to plane some wood off a sticking shed door, having bought a little plane for the purpose, thinking it would be cheaper than hiring a tradesman. The little plane is now in bits. It was in bits within 5 minutes of me setting hands on it. Oily, sharp bits. So, with the cursor at the top of the page where you want your table of contents to be, reference, tab. Table of contents, far left of the ribbon. Click on one of the automatic tables, whichever design you fancy. They light up as you hover over them. What you will see, at this stage, is the heading contents or table of contents depending on what design you chose. Underneath it will say, no table of contents entries found. Well, you have written your book and presumably already typed your chapter headings. Now you want the table of contents to be able to recognize them. At the moment, because they are in normal style, they are invisible to the table of contents. By the way, if you happen to click on your empty table, it will appear to you in a box with a little tab at the top saying Update Table. You don't need to do this yet. Click on Home tab. Go through your book, stopping at each chapter heading. Highlight each chapter heading by holding down the left button on your mouse, dragging across your heading, then letting go. On the right-hand side of the ribbon, still in the Home tab, you will see a range of heading styles. To begin with, Normal will be highlighted. Your table of contents won't recognize Normal. If you hover over heading 1, for example, Word 2010 will helpfully show you what the style is going to look like. Click on whichever heading you prefer. There are lots of choices. For more than you can currently see, click on the down arrow to the right of the heading choices. Go through your whole book repeating the process for each of your chapter headings. Highlight Styles. Choose one. Click to select it. Note, it's easier to find your chapter headings quickly if, when you write the book, you force your page break at the end of each chapter. Hold down Ctrl, press Enter. This will of course provide breathing spaces but will also help you in the construction of the book. It means you can use the double arrow thing on the right-hand side of your screen, which will skip you down a page at a time instead of having to diddle interminably with the single arrow. Now, go back up to your empty table of contents. Click on it, so that you can once again see the box around it and the Update Table tab. Click on that tab. Magic, your headings appear. Don't panic about the page numbers. I'll tell you how to get rid of those in a mo. Check your headings. Firstly, are they all there? If, for example, Chapter 3, How I Walked from Land's End to John O'Groats and Back Again with Gerald, my goat is mysteriously absent from the table of contents, either you forgot to write it or you forgot to highlight it and make it heading 1, heading 2 or whatever. Just go and do that. Are there any mistakes? Apart from spelling errors, the most usual one is inconsistent capitalization in your chapter headings. It is quite difficult to see with headings whether you have done an initial capital or not, since most headings are already in capitals, with slightly bigger capitals for capitals, if you see what I mean. No? Well, you will when you come across one. Go back to the chapter heading, delete the offending letter and retype it, either holding down the Shift key or not, depending on whether you want a capital or a lowercase letter there. When you've corrected any errors, Just click on the little Update Table tab again and they get put right. If you really have to make life difficult for yourself, you can have subheadings or even subheadings in your table. This is more likely to be the case with a non-fiction book. Just give subheadings a different heading style, and subheadings a different heading style again, and the table should sort it out for you, indenting them correctly. If I were you, though, I'd stick to just one sort of heading for my first attempt. But I don't need page numbers. You're right, you don't. You will know, if you are an ebook reader yourself, that the reader can change the font size, font type, line spacing and page orientation to suit him, or herself. So a page might begin or end anywhere. That's one of the reasons for having a clickable table of contents. It helps the reader to navigate his or her way around the book quickly and easily, without all the tedious clicking or leafing. To get rid, now, this is going to be counterintuitive. Whoever designed it was probably not wearing his or her human being head at the time. It does work, it's just hard to imagine why. Click on the References tab. Click on Table of Contents again. Third up from the bottom of the drop-down menu you'll see Insert Table of Contents. I know you've already inserted one, just do it. Now you get a box. About halfway down the box on the left you'll see a little square with a tick in it labeled Show Page Numbers. Click on that box to remove the tick. Click on OK. Now you'll see another box asking, do you want to replace the selected table of contents? Click on Yes. Voil. No page numbers. Amazon will let you publish amended or updated versions of your ebook as often as you need to. Just remember to update the table of contents at the same time. By the way, to jump to a particular chapter heading whilst constructing your doc, or whilst proofreading and making amendments to your document, hold down Ctrl, click on the heading, and you should find yourself there. I will let you into a secret at this point. I use the table of contents as an aid to constructing the book itself. I insert a doc early on in the process, and maybe I even list my chapter headings in advance, updating them all into the doc. Then I write up the various sections book out of sequence. For example, today I am writing the doc chapter, which will actually come towards the end of the finished ebook. I have written the introduction, chapters 1 and 2 and most of chapter 3, but then I've skipped to tables of contents. The reason I did this was because I knew it was going to be the second most challenging bit of writing, after designing the cover, and I wanted to do it while it was still fresh in my mind. Tomorrow I will probably finish chapter 3, or maybe I'll tackle chapter 6. That's what I mean about building rather than writing ebooks. Editing your book. Writing is a coming together of several different skills. There's the imaginative bit, which comes from your subconscious, and the craft bit, which comes from your conscious. If you are a real writer, you will not be using either your subconscious or your conscious, you will be doing both at once, and the two processes will be so interwoven you won't even notice. Yes, you can just write, you can just splurge it all out, as it comes into your head. No, you can't publish it in that condition. As you write, you should be noticing where you are repeating yourself, which bits can be cut out, which bits need to be in a different order, which bits are clear to you but may not be clear to someone coming to the text for the first time. You should have a feeling for the overall shape of your book, its balance, its pattern, its weight. This should be instinctive. If it isn't, stop writing and start reading. Good stuff, not newspapers. Read, read, read. You can't write if you don't read, and I mean, all the time. As you read, you will not only be improving your vocabulary, pause and look up any word or expression you couldn't define if someone asked you to, you will be absorbing editing ability. If this still doesn't seem to be happening, ask yourself if you really have to write. Yes, you can employ a professional editor, if you are able to afford one. But, to put it brutally, no editor can compensate for a cloth ear. Consider William Topaz McGonagall. He was a Scottish poet famed for the sheer unintentional appallingness of his poetry. If you don't see, feel or hear anything cringeworthy about the following, consider taking up golf, or chess, or amateur dramatics. Little Fido's master had to go on a long journey. So Fido followed her master, and ran cheerfully. And often the master would speak kindly to the dog. As along the road together they did jog. Her master rode on a very beautiful steed, and Fido followed behind at slow speed. And so they travelled on and on. And the road was dusty, and they felt woebegone. The sun shone hot, and the horse was covered with sweat. And poor Fido was tired and began to fret. And she felt so tired that no farther could she go. So Fido lay down and whined with her heart full of woe. However, not all editing opportunities will occur to you as you write. Some will not become apparent until you reread what you have written next day, or better still a week later. This doesn't matter as long as you do reread. Don't just spell check. Spell check is useful, but it often seems to introduce as many errors as it cures. Read it through. Make corrections, rearrange, rewrite, cut, read it through again. Do this as many times as you can bear. Then, if you have anyone else at all who can read it, pass it to them. They will almost certainly spot further errors because, unlike you, they won't already know, and see, what should be there. Any friend or relative will do. More than one friend or relative, even better. Most people will be pleased to help. After all, you are paying them a compliment. You are telling them you trust their grasp of the English language. However, proofreading is tedious, so if you have written a particularly long or technical book, think about dividing it up into sections and giving one section to each reader. If they say they want to know how it ends, post them the whole book but ask them just to proofread chapters 3, 4 and 5. Posting is better than emailing, because it's quite difficult to proofread on screen. Word does provide something called track changes for doing this, but track changes is the novice word processor's equivalent of the Everglades, and it's not really fair to expect people to teach themselves a whole new technique as well as proofreading your book. Ask them to look for, not just spelling mistakes but bits they don't understand, bits that bored them so that they felt the desire to skip to something more interesting, bits that pulled them up short and made them ask what? Ask them to make a note of anything odd. For example, my niece was recently asked to proofread an eBook for a work colleague. Halfway through she spotted that several of his characters appeared to have changed their names. Although the author had read it through himself and he had still not spotted that Millicent was suddenly Mary and Larry had become Harry. She asked me if he would have been embarrassed when she pointed this out. I said yes, probably, but he'd have been a lot more embarrassed if his mistakes had appeared in print. He should have treated her to a cappuccino and a cream donut. Any error that gets through is likely to annoy readers. A reader irritated by a single wrong word or a minor glitch may well decide to post a 2-star review of what is essentially a 5-star book. And a bad review will affect sales. There are ways of seeing your book as it will appear on Kindle. When you get to the uploading part you will see that Kindle provides a previewer to help you with this, and also highlights possible spelling errors and gives you a chance to correct them before continuing. I must say that I couldn't get Kindle previewer to work for me. My screen kept coming up with one of those gobbledygook messages to the effect that your internet browser is not configured to do ... whatever. I did some internet research and discovered that to cure this glitch I might have to somehow or other strip my machine back to its original, factory settings. No way, Jose. There is a free downloadable program called Calibre. http://calibrebook.com/ which will enable you to convert your file into EPUB, which is the format Amazon ultimately use, and which will also allow you to preview your book. Another cheat way is simply to publish your ebook, and as soon as it goes live, usually about 12 hours later, download it and read it through, notebook in hand. It does mean paying for your own book. Look on the bright side, you will have made your first sale, and you will be aghast and horrified by the number of mistakes it still contains. Go back to your original document. Correct the mistakes, quick. Re-upload. Another 12 hours and it's live again. In effect, you're using Kindle itself as a previewer. Obviously, this is not the right way to do it, but it's the one I usually use nowadays. The danger is that your book will actually be a success, straight away. Some keen soul will download it instantly, read it within 24 hours, spot some dire error and post a scathing review which you will never, ever be able to get rid of. Sadly, my own experience has been that the book goes live and nothing much happens. Unbelievable as it may seem, people don't all rush to download, and even if they do download, they will take quite a long time to read it. They may have a queue of unread books on their Kindle, just waiting for that long train journey or whatever. I know I have. Sadly, too, they mostly won't be interested enough to review it afterwards. Readers' reviews, whether good or bad, are greatly prized by ebook authors, and as rare as hen's teeth. So unless you are positive that you have an instant bestseller on your hands, one that is going to positively fly off the shelves, you can probably risk publishing and then previewing. Preparing your book description. The book description is the bit that appears on Kindle underneath the title of your book, and which gives readers some idea of what to expect, in other words, why they should buy your book. Prepare this in advance, as a separate Word document, before you even start the uploading process. Otherwise you'll get caught out, panic, write something off the cuff and it won't be very good. You are allowed 4,000 characters, which is quite a lot of words. If you write it as a separate document, you can check the word and character count as you go along. Review. Word count. Unless you are incredibly big-headed and overconfident, you're going to find it hard to write a complimentary and sales-wide blurb for your own book. But it is important, so you are going to need to put your publisher's hat on. Remember, you are both writer and publisher, and of the two roles the publisher's is the more difficult. It is at this point that you will miss the luxury of a traditional publisher, and again when you are trying to work out how to promote your book. I suggest you spend a little time looking at other books on sale in your genre. Read the book descriptions. Especially look at the book descriptions of books that are doing well or that you have downloaded yourself in the past. What is it about the description that makes the book sound intriguing? What was it in the book description that made you think the book might be worth X pounds or dollars of your hard-earned money? Did it sound like the sort of story you love to read? If non-fiction, did it sound like might contain just the information you had been looking for? Did it sound like it would solve your problem? Entertain you? Think, why did you write this book? Who did you write it for? Is your imaginary reader male or female? How old is he or she? How educated, how cool, how worried, and about what? If your imaginary reader is you, why did you want so much to read this particular story or this particular non-fiction book that you sat down and spent a month, or several months, or several years writing it? If you really can't do it, find someone who really quite likes you. There must be someone who is capable of writing a catchy paragraph or two, and bribe them with cappuccino and cream donuts to do the dirty deed on your behalf. Publishing your book. I won't go through the whole process of publishing your finished manuscript on Kindle. The process is relatively quick and easy, and Amazon provides a sort of wizard to help you do it. Just go to https://kdp.amazon.com/ and follow the instructions under Getting Started, How to Publish. One thing you will need to do is make sure your cover photo is in a size and type of file acceptable to Amazon. It took me quite a while to work out a way of doing this, which I will tell you below. There are no doubt much better and quicker ways, which nerdy reviewers will be keen to list, and I shall be only too grateful. This is the way I found to do it. You have designed your book cover, but at this point it's a Word document, which the Kindle wizard won't accept, and it's the wrong size. Go to http://www.dockerpub.com/pfconvert/. This is the Nevia Technology website. Output format, JPEG. Resolution, 300. Quality, 30. Select and upload your cover photo file. You do this by clicking on Browse. It shows you all your stored Word documents. Click on the one that contains the cover photo. Delivery method, wait for conversion in browser. Email address, type it in. Click Upload and Convert. Wait while it does this. You'll see a little yellow clock with hands going round. Then it'll tell you your ebook has been successfully converted. Below that message is a link to your cover, which is now in the form of a JPEG, one of several formats Kindle will be able to digest. The one for this book looks like this: Easy Peasy eBooks, Horse Cover 1.jpg 271 KB. Right, not left, click on it and select Save Target As. At this point, my machine automatically opens Windows Picture Library, which is where my pictures seem to automatically save themselves. If your machine is set up differently, save the picture wherever you normally save photos, or onto your desktop, anywhere you can easily find it again. Save. View downloads. Open. Open with Paint. At this point, Paint opens up. Paint is a kind of graphics package that just seems to be supplied with Windows. The icon for it is an artist's palette and paintbrush. The only thing I use it for is resizing JPEGs to please Kindle's publishing wizard. You can no doubt do the same in Photoshop, other programs, and at any number of free websites. Click on the little icon on the left-hand side. Looks a bit like a ladder, goodness knows what it's meant to be. Open. Once again, Windows Picture Library becomes visible. Select your newly saved JPEG cover, and double-click. This now appears, or at any rate part of it does, in the Paint window. Home. Resize. Pixels, select. Maintain aspect ratio, uncheck/untick. Horizontal, 1563. Vertical, 2500. OK. Go back to the little ladder icon, top left. Save as. Picture library appears again. Save, replacing your original JPEG version. So what you have got now is still a JPEG, but of the right dimensions. Phew. So now, with your book description and cover photo safely saved, you're ready to launch into the publishing process. Once you've done it once, you should find that you can upload a book in under 15 minutes. End notes. That's all I can think of to tell you about making and publishing an ebook, and I hope it has been helpful. I would like to tell you how to sell your ebook, which is the really difficult thing, but I haven't cracked that one yet. Before I started out, I read an awful lot of ebooks by other ebook writers about how to build ebooks. Some of the advice was helpful, but a lot of it wasn't, and I ended up doing most of it by trial and error. At the same time, I read a lot of ebooks about selling ebooks, how to take the market by storm, crush it, kill it, squash it, etc. Some advised throwing all one's energies into an author platform, tweeting, blogging, Facebooking and chatting. Some asserted that this sort of thing was a complete waste of time, since the click-through rate from these things being so minuscule that you might as well not bother. Some implied the best way to get publicity for a book was to be famous already. Well, who'd have thought it? Some emphasized the importance of a good title and a good cover. Some pointed out that there is no point in publishing ebooks in subjects hardly anyone is interested in, which is a surprisingly easy mistake to make, or find you have made. I published a book called Musical Ear Syndrome, also under Amisha Taylor. The few people that downloaded it seemed to like it and I got 5-star reviews. Most of my reviews seem to come from America, by the way. Thank you, America. It didn't strike me until afterwards that the number of people who A. suffer from auditory hallucinations and B. realize that this is called musical ear syndrome and search for that term, must be vanishingly small. I started a book on left-handedness, abandoning it when I realized that A. in spite of being left-handed I was really out of my depth, scientifically speaking, and B. only about 10% of the population actually is left-handed. I was limiting my potential market to 10% of the population. It is at this stage when you begin to understand why publishers used to reject so many wonderful manuscripts. It's a humbling experience, learning how to be an author/publisher. There is also the business of categories. If you choose the wrong category or combination of categories, you are likely, apparently, to end up at the bottom of the heap. What you need to do is complicated, time-consuming and worse still mathematical research to find out which categories give you the best chance of getting to number 1 in the ratings for your category. As I say, I haven't cracked it. At the moment, anyway, my books hardly sell. Amazon will, under certain circumstances, allow you to put them on free offer for 5 out of every 90 days. When I put my books on free offer I get a surge in downloads, the green line on the reports graph, green equals free downloads, so no money, shoots up impressively for 5 days, then drops like a stone. The red line, red equals actual sales, won't, of course, move all the while the book is on free offer, but in my experience it continues not to move when it goes back to $2.99. I bet you downloaded this book for free, didn't you? Don't get me wrong, I'm really glad you did download it. It helps a lot to know that what I have written is being read, not only in my own country, United Kingdom, but in distant corners of the globe where I would have imagined hardly anybody spoke English on a regular basis, let alone wanted to read, in English, my little offering. Having lots of free downloads, whilst not resulting in any actual income, does, as I understand it, improve your position in the charts since all downloads, whether free or paid for, are taken into account. Free downloads can also, sometimes, result in a crop of customer reviews, when people are kind enough to go back onto the website and give the book a rating and say what they thought. Reviews are like gold dust, rare and treasured. Even one positive review can make a difference in downloads. You can see it on the sales report. The green line starts to dips, a positive review appears, it shoots back up again. The other thing about customer reviews is that they provide feedback. Authors crave feedback. Everyone wants to be loved, don't they? And if it turns out that they are not loved, they want to find out where they're going wrong so that they can do better, so as to be loved next time round. Offering your book for free provides a very welcome burst of publicity, but as soon as the book reverts to being not free it gets zero publicity. People will subsequently only stumble across your book if they happen to be specifically searching in your category/subject area, or for one of the words in your title or subtitle, or for one of the 7 keywords you provided as part of the publishing process. And the competition is huge because there are no longer any gatekeepers. Anyone can now publish anything as long as they can master a few technicalities. I have come to appreciate that Amazon is a vast ocean of eBooks, and of course only the vastest of several oceans when you take into account other ebook publishers such as Kobo and Nook. Your books, and my books, are but drops in several oceans, oceans that are growing vaster and vaster even as I write and you read. I freely admit I don't know what the answer is. Maybe there is no answer and producing a best-selling or anything-selling ebook is akin to winning millions the lottery. It could happen, but the odds against are staggeringly long. If I do eventually find the answer, I'll let you know. That could be another book. So simple selling, maybe. Or marketing magnificence. Reviews. Word of mouth is crucial for any author to succeed. If you enjoyed this book, please consider leaving a customer review at Amazon, even if it's only a line or two. It would be very much appreciated.